I used to take like a nanosecond to block. I was just done.
How embarrassing is it if you have to unblock them?
You go away now, and I'm going to go away now, and we'll never have to see each other again.
Until he calls you.
I've been ghosted either through text or even in person, if that even makes sense. Meaning the whole classic, hey, I got to go to the restroom, and then just don't come back.
No.
I didn't think people actually did that. There are some people that just aren't like texters, and that's just something
I don't buy that, Caitlyn.
There's something you got to establish.
It's never been easier to communicate with somebody over text, over a phone call, over a social media app. Let's stop making excuses for people who are bad communicators, because there are tons of great and simple ways to communicate. Hi, I'm Debbie.
I'm Caitlyn.
Welcome to Dating at Her Age. I mean, dating at her age? Oh, poor thing. Caitlyn, do you ghost or block men after they dump you?
Not necessarily.
What?
But it depends on the context.
Why?
Did it end badly? Was it a quick 2-week fling that they completely disrespected me? Was it a long-term friendship relationship that we just decided no more? That's a little harder for me to cut off completely. So I don't know. It kind of depends. But the overall answer is no, because I don't want to.
Do you feel guilty or do you not like when it happens to you, so you don't want to do unto others?
All of the above, essentially, because I'm traumatized, so I don't want to ignore people, number one. I worry that something could happen to them, and it's like, oh, if I just responded this one time, something could have changed or whatever. They would have taken a different path, whatever, something like that. Or if it was, I just think life is short, so I don't like to ignore people. And then I also don't like when I'm ignored. And so I really try my hardest to just respond, even if it's a thumbs up or a like on the message, like to not just completely leave somebody in the dark, driving them insane, because it's disrespectful when it happens to me, and I just wouldn't want to do that to somebody else.
Okay, so let's set up the agenda for the next hour or so. We're going to talk about ghosting. I want to get into why I stopped ghosting.
And we're also going to talk about what it's like to be ghosted. We are going to talk to a guy who's been ghosted in person and how it's impacted his dating life.
I'm glad we talked to him, because I think it's important to hear it from a man's perspective, what it's like to be ghosted. And not only be ghosted by phone, but also in person.
Yeah, and you don't typically hear it coming from a guy. Usually we hear girls being ghosted by guys. So I think his perspective is really important.
The old Debbie used to block and ghost. But now the older Debbie, now that I'm 57, I don't do it anymore. And I recently posted a video about this very issue to TikTok. And what I did not expect is that this video went viral. It got more than 1 million views, hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, and it seems there are hundreds of different points of view about when you get dumped or there's a breakup, whether you block or you ghost or you keep the communication open.
When somebody makes a decision that I am no longer qualified to be in their life, I feel that they are no longer at the level that they get to have a placeholder in my phone. Do I have 1,000 contacts in my phone? Maybe 2,000? I sure do. But if you've just told me you're moving on, I'll still let your phone number ring through, but you don't get to have your name in my phone with a little heart emoji next to it anymore.
So let's you and I talk through why I came to this conclusion, or just found a new way to deal with a breakup other than block.
Yeah.
Ghost.
I mean, it can be needed in certain situations. Sometimes it's the strongest and most powerful method to do the block. I would say that. But
and we'll touch on that. So I'm going to read through some of the comments, because every breakup is different.
Yeah, it is.
Some people break up because there's abuse in a relationship and you just don't want to have any more contact. There's no reason to have any more contact. But this is a relationship that really broke my cycle of ghosting or blocking on my phone, because I really feel like I'm just at an age now where it's just it doesn't feel appropriate anymore given these circumstances. So I appreciate what you said about, well, it depends on how long it was. If it was 2 weeks, this went on for a couple of years, like this relationship I was in, and it was very on again, off again. And it was fun. We had a lot of great times together. But I think, do you remember when I came into work one morning to produce the show and I'd said, "Oh, we're done. It's over," like a year ago.
Yeah. Then you came back around and found out something else.
Yes, it just was one thing after the other, but we had basically broken it off, and we had been off for months. I mean, probably a good 9 months, maybe even a year. I stopped counting. I had long since moved on, and I got a call from him, and he said, "Do you want to meet? I would love to, take you out." Well, and I was like, "Well, I don't have any reason not to. I'm not angry over here. It's like, well, sure, I'll meet." And then he told me while we were at dinner that he was getting back together with his previous girlfriend who had been out of the picture for years.
Like you were still dating him. Breakup 2.0, but only on one half.
Caitlyn, I did not know how to react. I think I almost choked on my chicken. Yeah. I was like, "Well, you don't need to clear that with me.
Yeah.
We're long since over." But I appreciate you letting me know. And truly, I really was happy for him. And I think he still loves her. I think they'll be great together. And it wasn't only that they were getting back together, but they were moving back in together. So it was obvious to me they'd been probably talking for quite some time, right? Because that's such a huge commitment. I would think they'd reconnected and they were just rekindling their relationship. And then he felt it necessary to come in, swoop in, and take me to dinner and dump me again.
Like there was unfinished business, but maybe there was on his end. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his brain, but it's interesting.
So then I come to work on Monday and I told you, I said, "Guess what? I got dumped again." And you said, "I didn't even know you were in a relationship."
I know, that's interesting. People's mind, like, don't know how did it end? Was it clean cut on that you thought it was clear?
Oh yeah, and I wish him my best. I am truly really happy for him, and you know what I thought when I was driving away? Hallelujah!
Yeah, he's finally on someone else's
radar.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean that. But like, oh, good, somebody else has this problem to deal with.
No, I turned up the music in my car. I mean, it was, December in Salt Lake. So it was 20 degrees. I rolled down the window. I was singing out loud at 11 o'clock. And like, hallelujah, it's over. I'm done. I want to be done.
Yeah, it is actually a relief. Well, your situation's very unique, but maybe it's not. I don't know. But when they make the decision and they have somebody else taking them away, so you're just like, okay, now I know exactly which path to go. It's not that one. And you don't have this wishy-washiness in your head where you maybe need to like lean in and out. But even if that does happen, I still feel like people crawl back still. So
you go away now and I'm going to go away now. And we'll never have to see each other again.
Until he calls you. I'm just being truthful.
There is a whole other episode on why they always come back.
Yeah, there is.
But I got home and I thought the best thing I can do for myself in this moment is I can block him and just be permanently done. When we come back, let's talk about why I didn't block him. Okay, so now we're at the point where I'm waking up the next morning, Caitlyn. I've been dumped by a guy I didn't know I was dating. I'd been in a previous relationship with him, but I knew it was over. We hadn't gone out. We hadn't talked to each other in months. And then we go to dinner and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm moving back in with my ex-girlfriend." To which I said, "Hallelujah. Congratulations. I love this for both of you. I wish you guys the best. This is awesome." And I went to bed that night when I got home thinking I should block him. But the first thing I did is I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until the morning to see how I feel.
Yeah, that's actually a great rule because you can act on emotion like very easily. I mean, you could do it at any time of day, but at night, when you're laying in bed thinking about it, it's the only thing you're thinking about. You can act very impulsively. And I have that problem, like, oh, I should just reach out to them. I should just check in on how they're doing sometimes. And sometimes I do it, but I usually sleep on it. And then if I feel like I've calmed down, but if I can't, then sometimes I'll reach out or I'll respond or whatever the situation is. But blocking Yeah, you should sleep on that, I think. Because then how embarrassing is it if you have to unblock them? That's what I'm thinking about. Or if you unfriend them, if you do it on impulse, you decide, things are okay. I can actually just see their life.
Well, and that's a different angle too, unfriending them on Facebook or blocking them on a social media app. Well, this was
blocking their number.
Strictly over, their phone number, blocking them, taking them out of my phone. And I thought about it that morning. I got up, made my coffee. I had some breakfast, so I got a few nutrients on the brain. And I thought, Deb, you are in your late 50s now. And is this still how you want to do things? And I thought a lot about it actually throughout the day. And I realized something, Caitlyn, and that's when I took to TikTok to post that video about why I've made the decision to no longer block or even ghost after a breakup. And that's why I said that video went viral. So clearly this is something that is on a lot of people's minds. Like, what do you do in the moment? And in a second, I want to read some of the comments because everybody comes at this from a different angle and a lot of circumstances are different. But I've changed radically from what I used to do. I used to take a nanosecond to block. I was just done. And once I'm done, I'm done.
Well, I don't know. That's strength, but it can also be impulsive. So I don't know.
It was very impulsive.
For me, I feel like I'm not going to block somebody unless they've really put negativity into my life and I need to rid that negativity. I only have a few people blocked that are not even relationship situations. They've provided negativity in my life. But otherwise, I still follow people that I've, previously, had things with or whatever you want to call it. But for me to block and completely cut out, I feel like that's a big step for me. I don't know why it's such a big step, but I don't know. That's why I say
a lot of people do it though.
It does depend on the situation. And I will say recently I have been on a blocking spree. I'm talking about social media. I've never blocked a phone number.
But that's because people, you feel like are infusing negative vibes into your life.
Yeah, but if they come into your life like a phone call or a text and they do it and you've set a boundary and they're not listening to the boundary and you need to rid them of your life and just move on and have peace, even if they are still in a relationship, I think that's when you make the decision. But sleeping on it, and if they haven't really done those things, that makes sense. That's why you came to that conclusion.
It's just a breakup of a relationship I didn't realize I was in.
If things came and if they were clean, I think it's fine to still, have that path open. And then if it becomes a problem, that's when I would probably block them, but I don't know.
So I still felt, though, that there was some sort of action, and I'll bounce this off of you and tell you what I did, that I needed to take just for my own peace of mind and also to take some of my power back because I did feel like that dinner date was quite a bit of a setup in a sense. There was no reason for me to be summoned to dinner, and I could have said no, but I didn't see a reason to say no, just to be told, oh, by the way, even though we haven't been seeing each other for quite some time, I'm moving back in with my ex-girlfriend. I mean,
that's weird.
That's something that to me that could have been either a phone call or a text. So I did feel set up, if you will, and I felt like I just personally, without making a stink about it, needed to take some of my power back. And what I did is I removed his name from my phone.
That's smart. There's no accidentally...
I removed the heart emoji, too, that was next to his name, by the way.
No, that's smart. I think that's a good strategy because, it leaves the gate open for him to contact you, but you're not going to go stumble into your contacts unless you have his number memorized. That doesn't help sometimes. But...
When he calls me, it's just a generic phone number.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I'll just answer it like, oh, I forgot you existed.
It sounds like a silly thing to do.
That sounds smart to me.
But it really did help me to say, this is my phone, and the people who are important in my life and have made me an important focus of their life get to be in my list of contacts. But the people who decide to not only dump me, but then double dump me.
They don't deserve that spot.
If you triple dump me, and then rub it in, don't rise to that level anymore.
Yeah.
Did that sound silly?
No, that sounds very smart, and I should take that advice, but I don't.
It really did help me. it just helped me deal with it in a way that wasn't
It does kind
aggressive
of
in a sense of blocking
them from your. I mean, maybe an aspect of your mind, not completely, but it's not gonna. It is taking your power back, and I see that to be a really, really strong thing. There are other ways that people have done that, though. I think you mentioned something about someone putting a graveyard as emoji as their name.
Yeah. So as I said, I posted this on my TikTok account, and it went viral and has close to 400 comments, and they may even have more because I think some of the comments get filtered because I don't allow certain comments to come through.
You're
if they're
blocking
using
comments, or there's
keywords. If they use if they don't use
sense.
G-rated words, the comments get blocked. Elisa said, "I saved their name as nobody."
It makes sense.
And she sets their ringtone to silent.
That's smart. I've never heard of that, but that is very smart.
I want to point out I did that too.
That is smart.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's on silent, so I don't get notified. Lori said, "I especially don't block the unstable ones."
Okay, I like that.
I've had this before, where in previous it was just one date, but I declined a second date, and boy, things got nasty on his end with the text messages that were coming in, and I could have blocked, right? I could have blocked. I could have ghosted, and I mostly did ghost, but I did have to at some point say, I'm asking you to cease these text messages at this point, because it got so terrible and over the top. But my thought process was I would rather know where they're at psychologically with me than be oblivious to what's going on in their brain.
Well, that's part of my trauma, but that also could show ramifications on your end too if they're just depending on the situation. But yeah.
Another, I don't know this name, Ivith on TikTok, says, "I block those guys that want to leave and come back and leave again. I don't play games."
I think that's smart if you're strong enough. That's where it comes into the context part of it. But that, like I said, I think that's the strongest thing that you can do, and it is effective.
Ashley says, "I have a whole list of graveyard numbers," and she uses the graveyard emoji.
I like it. So she's got a long list, so you can't even keep track of who they are anymore because it's a graveyard of people you don't talk to
men who
anymore.
are dead to her.
I love it. You're dead to me.
Karen says, "I delete the phone number out of my contacts as well."
You said that, and that's a good one too. I like the graveyard. I should make one in my phone.
I don't block. I just simply ignore, says Mama Bear.
That's effective as well. Silence says something.
Yeah.
Especially depending on what end you're on.
This commenter says, "I changed them to do not answer."
Okay.
And she also says that she uses the same for telemarketers too.
That's smart.
I have the same telemarketer calling me from the same number all the time, and I block, but I'm going to change it to do not answer.
Do not answer. I could actually see. That just gave me an idea in like the little subline or anything. If it says do not answer, you could put a reminder as to like what they did to you. And so you can just be reminded, they were mean because they did this to me on this day.
So Kim said, "I held on to a situation with a guy for years. He started distancing himself, so I finally opted to delete his number, picture, and everything." So she was getting the runaround.
Yeah, that seems to be a trend. Why can't we get it together, men?
And then Casey said, "I am a blocker. I am a blocker. It's the point of no return." So blocking does add a sense of it's permanent. We know we can undo blocking by a push of a button, but it does give a sense of it's permanent. I'm totally done. And all of those comments make me think that this is really something that we think about a lot, and we haven't quite figured out the perfect answer to.
We all do think about that. I think it's because of maybe what I'm struggling with is because you don't want to be rude. Maybe some people deserve to be rude, though. Like they are allowed
be rude to them.
Yeah, I don't think I'm in that situation right now. But I think that some men and or women deserve to be blocked because they've gone off the rails or they're really disrespecting you. That's a different situation. But I'm just giving sympathy to where it ended kind of clean and whatnot. But I don't know. blocking just seems so harsh to me. But I've had situations like my friends have explained to me where they're getting phone calls, like 40 missed calls from guys that they've broken up with. These are like the unstable ones. This is what I'm referring to. That's when you have to block, because that's a safety concern, in my opinion. So I don't know.
Do you know what we need to do in a future episode is we actually need to get a police officer to weigh in on if you are getting bombarded, as I was after that first date, and I said I didn't want a second date, and I was bombarded. What is the appropriate way to handle that so you put them on notice, but you don't put yourself at greater risk?
Yeah, I think that's really important to do that.
We will absolutely track that angle down, because I think that happens a lot. It's happened to me a couple of times. I can share how I've handled it in the past in more detail.
I've been witness to it. It hasn't happened to me directly because I don't talk to a lot of people.
Let's leave this like block, don't block. I've stopped blocking. I'm guess what? I'm perfectly fine. It's been a couple of months. But this woman says, I do, only because I don't want that door back open in a weak moment. And I become plan B.
Yep.
She says, I wish them well, and then I cut off all access.
That is the strong woman right there. That's actually what we should all be following, in my opinion. Because you shouldn't be plan B, because a lot of the time when they're wishy-washy, that's what it comes to. They just get bored and they're like, oh, let's go back to this person.
Yeah, we're plan A plus plus. Come on. We are plan A plus plus. We're not a plan B.
They are mistaken with that. I do think that ghosting, the term ghosting, has now kind of been redefined a little bit, because I almost feel like men do it for fun. Maybe women do it too. I don't know.
Oh, I think men do it for manipulation.
Manipulation.
I think they do it for manipulation.
Yeah. I recently, because the stories that I hear, and this is why I'm just like, wow, it's like a game now. But I know someone who went on maybe, I think it was 2 dates with a guy. So it's, nothing crazy. But first date was fun, I think. And then they met up again. And I think that they kissed. There was something there. And so after that, you'd be like, oh, things are like kind of going good. He kissed me, or whatever the situation was. And then after that, I was told that he completely just went ghost and did not respond to anything, which is so disrespectful. But that's when I'm like,
he went Casper on her?
That's what people do now. And I feel like I hear the story, maybe it's just because I'm a girl, but I hear it being done to girls. They just ghost them. And that just means they evaporate, and they just after a day, which it seems like a game to me, but I just can you just not handle the real talk, if you're not feeling it? Because I would so much rather be told, hey, I had fun, but I just don't think that it's exactly what I'm looking for. Please just say that. So since I have been curious about this, I put the question out on social media, why do men ghost? And I did my own research, and I will share the responses next. So maybe we can get a little bit more insight into what is going on in men's brains when they decide to just not respond to you.
We'll also talk to a man who's been ghosted in person and how it impacted his views about dating.
I've been ghosted either through text or even in person, if that even makes sense. Meaning the whole classic, hey, I got to go to the restroom, and then just don't come back.
Blocking and ghosting people, it is a huge issue. It's certainly a big part of the dating world, and that's exactly what we're talking about. I admitted I used to be the ghoster, and I'm not a ghoster anymore. I've decided I'm too old to ghost. I should be more mature than that, Caitlyn. And also, quite frankly, it hurts my feelings when I get ghosted.
Right. And I think that we alluded to that, but I just want to talk about more of kind of being on the side of ghosting and how it kind of discourages you and just dating in general. And I just think that there's a lot
So this is when we're going to talk about when you're the ghostee.
Yeah, when you're ghosted. And
not the ghoster.
It can turn you into a ghoster as well sometimes, because you're just you just feel disrespected as all.
Should we talk about, I'd love to talk about how it has made you feel in the past, and then, I'll do my normal therapy session on how I felt.
Essentially, when I just get ignored, if you don't text me back and it's not an urgent text, whatever, that's fine. I can get over it. But I think it might be because of the industry that we work in. It's not hard to get a message out and get a response. But I mean, I also can say that I know that my phone blows up all day, so maybe I miss a text or two, but it's more about ghosting after someone else has established a connection or interest in you. And then either take you out or they just decide to disappear for absolutely no reason, it just makes you feel so disrespected. And just it discourages you, because I just think that it puts a bad taste in your mouth, and you really just don't want to deal with that. And it is a sign, if someone does that, it's not meant for you. But I'm just like, why can't you just say, hey, I'm not really feeling this. We should just maybe go our separate ways, or just something up front, because it would be so much better to just say it up front. And I would prefer that than to be left on red and just lost in your mind, and you go down all these weird rabbit holes that you might have done something wrong, or like, I don't know, you pushed them away and maybe you did, and it's not your person if that's the case, but it just makes you feel disrespected.
Do you double text a ghoster when you've been ghosted? Do you text them back, or do you let it go?
I would say it depends on the context, but if it's like, no, I mean, not necessarily. If I'm concerned about the person, I think that's the only reason I would double text. If I'm like, hey, I just need to make sure I put this message out, because sometimes you do just need to release things and it makes you feel better. Like, okay, they read the message. I don't need a response. And that's just detaching from the outcome. But no, not necessarily. I try not to do that, because if they see the first one and they choose not to respond, that's great.
For me, in relationships and dating, I'm sure, like outside of dating, there's a higher high, but there's no higher high than when you finally connect with somebody and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is great. This is like 8 years of slogging uphill in shoes of concrete through mud to finally meet somebody on a coffee date. There feels like there might be a really fun connection. And then there's no lower low by the next day when you realize you've texted them back and you haven't heard from them. And it seems like they've just fallen off the face of the earth. And that feeling of being the one who's ghosted, it's just, I agree with you. It's so hurtful. I used to do it. And now I've finally recognized, after getting ghosted enough, that it's so rude and it's so hurtful. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that rude to somebody.
Which I think that's good to realize. And that's just a sign of maybe emotional maturity. And I think that that's the reason people ghost. I'll get to a few of these comments either, but I put the question out, why do men ghost, on some of my social pages? Because I wanted to get more insight about that. And I said men because that's the experience I have. Men, yeah. But I kind of just meant it in general. But and some people pointed out that girls do as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
There is a comment that you made a few minutes ago, and that is because of the business that we're in, we tend to expect a quick response. And both you and I are in the news business.
Or just a response. Doesn't have to be quick. But.
Well, for context, for people who aren't in the news business, but I think this is generally like a lot of businesses now. When you're in the news business, you're on constant deadline. When a big story breaks, we're reaching out to people who might be in the field. Maybe it's a reporter or it's an expert. And we have had very, very good luck over, decades of getting quick responses. Well, with the invention of smartphones and text, it makes it even easier. So I think that does heighten our expectations that what happens in our professional life should also play out in our personal life. However, I will say this. My feeling about dating men who are slow to get back to me or completely ghost me is that they're just not interested in me.
And that's okay. That's where I'm at.
Well, I'm not always okay with that.
It's more of what I was going to say. That's what I was going. Is like, that's okay if they're not interested. They just need to say something, because it cuts it off. It puts you in the right direction. Just put us all on the right path, so we're not like wasting time if you're not interested. And I mean, I need to be better at doing that too. Like, I don't really feel like I actively talk to a lot of people right now, but there's people that have showed interest in me, and I don't have a strong interest, but I'm also not trying to be rude because I've never even met them. They're just trying to talk to me.
And I think we're talking more about you've established a connection, you've gone out on a date. This isn't they've fallen off the face of the earth on a dating app. I even think, I think there's a lot of that, and the dating apps make it almost impossible sometimes to keep up. And I know there's been times when I have inadvertently ghosted men on dating apps because I've had so many other things going on in my life. Right. I haven't even been able to check the app in a while, and then they disappear, or they send me kind of a nasty gram over the dating app, like, I'm done. You just show no interest in me, and I'm thinking you don't even know what's been going on the last couple of days. But I understand. I'm like, okay, that's how it goes. But this is somebody you've established a connection with. You're now maybe texting back and forth with, and then they just suddenly vanish. And so I've done something in my own life, so it makes it easier for me when I'm trying to disconnect with a guy that I realize, we've been on 1 or 2 dates, but I'm really not feeling the connection. And as I've said before, my runway isn't as long as yours because I'm in my late 50s and I don't want to spend a lot of time on something that I can clearly tell from intuition. We're just on totally
Which
different
I don't want to do that either. Like, I don't have time. But I get what you're saying.
And also I think the dating pool in my age is a lot more shallow than yours.
Mine's getting shallower.
So it does get a little scary to do this. But I just keep some key phrases that are laced with compliments in my notes in my iPhone that I can cut and paste into a text message. So yeah, it kind of is a form text message to maybe there's more than one guy I've had to send this to, but usually it says something along the lines of, hey, I had a really great time getting to know you. You've clearly had an amazing life. Your kids sound like a lot of fun, whatever the case may be. Fill in the blanks accordingly. But I'm not feeling the connection that I'm looking for, but I so appreciate you buying me coffee and I wish you the best of luck. I know the right person is out there for you somewhere. And that normally that they appreciate that and they say thank you. And then that's a way to make them feel like, yeah, I got their message, but I'm also letting them know that it's not going anywhere. And I did that. Can I revert back to about a decade ago? I work for the FBI as a spokesperson, and you have to respond all the time, frequently, to news media calls. I mean, I'd get hundreds of calls sometimes in a week if we had a big case that was breaking from media all over the world. And I recognized something very early on, that it helps to have your thoughts formulated. And it's not that everybody got a form letter or a form statement. Sometimes they did. But when I got a call and I was, maybe I was walking into the building or I was walking in my car and somebody from the Associated Press would call me, or somebody from Nightline would call me, or somebody from ABC News would call me, and they needed a statement, and they needed a statement right away. And I always found it was just better to have an idea of where I was going with the information. And I've applied that in a lot of ways to my dating life. Like, when I'm texting somebody back, when I'm going to break it off with them, I refer to my notes and I give them that, that sort of that form text that says, I had a great time. It was fun to get to know you, but I'm not feeling the connection that I'm really looking for long term. And I wish you the best down the road. And, I'm sure there's somebody out there for you. I've just found that I don't go home and worry about that, because you get an idea if they're going to text you again, or they're going to ask you out for a second date or a third date, or even if you're breaking it off with a long-term relationship. I think there's ways you can write the text in your notes before you write it in the actual text app and send it. Write it out and think about it and be nice about it.
Yeah, all you ghosters out there, that's what you do. It just is so much. That's the proper way to do it, and it's rejection still, but it's respectful rejection, I guess. And I think that even if the person is a little bit disappointed, they'll respect you way more just for being upfront, because that's all that I'm asking for in certain situations.
So you said you put this out on your Facebook page or
social
TikTok
media
account?
Yeah, all of the above, honestly. But
so you asked the question. What question did you ask?
I wanted to just get more insight on the ghoster, and I put out the question, why do men ghost? And I actually got a lot of feedback, and so that's what kind of prompted me to want to get bigger into this conversation. And let me pull up my thing. Give me just a second.
Okay. So you put this out there a few days ago, and I'm looking at it. Looks like you do have a ton of comments. My goodness, I think this is a hot topic for a lot of people, because it's really, to me, I mean, I guess maybe, back in the day when I was dating in the late 80s, maybe you just call and call and call and call. And after you kept getting the answering machine, 30 times you got the message. But today it's so much easier to ghost because of texting.
It is. And it's just that
and I think people use it as a cop out.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
It's
that's a cop out.
That's why I think dating apps are so shallow, but we'll get into more of that in a different episode. But it just is a disrespect factor. Like, I don't know, you're wasting somebody's time. And I feel like if I'm giving you access to me, that is a privilege, and you should respect that and just respect me even if you don't like me.
Okay, so hit me with some of those comments.
First comment, going past my mom, who's wondering why I'm asking this question.
Did she say that?
Well, she's like, what are you talking about, Willis or who? And I'm just like, it's just please just stand by. I'm just getting research.
I love your mom.
Yeah.
I love your mom.
unable to deal with conflicts. And I think that that's the biggest thing here is just they are afraid of hurting someone's feelings or just facing the music, when reality I'm not going to speak for every woman out there, but I just like to deal with things. Like, just say it how it is. Let's talk it out.
So the person who said that, the commenter is saying the ghoster, defining the ghoster as somebody who is unable to deal with conflicts. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's somebody who's trying to avoid the conversation. But boy, I hope we're all mature enough if we get that text that says, look, I'm not feeling that connection, to not make that other person's life miserable and say, but why not? Look how amazing I am, and we got to give me a second try. And so, okay, that's a great point.
Yeah, and another one that kind of gets that the ghosters do sometimes come back, but this comment's just saying they don't want to lose their little savings account, like their security account. This could be a situationship type deal. They don't want to let you go completely, but they don't want to face the music. But if they disappear and then hit you up down the road in a happy tune, it's completely lame and should just be passed on.
I have an example of when this happened. I went out with a guy on a couple of dates, and I thought, oh, gosh, I really felt connected to him. And I'd sent a text, kind of following up a couple of days later after I hadn't heard from him. And, I was the initiator in that case. Like, hey, how's it going? I hope you're having a great week. Because I don't think the man should do all the work. I think, it's nice.
A dual effort.
It's nice for the woman. At least I feel like it's nice for me to reach out. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're having a great, time or a great week at work. I know you had a big project or whatever. And there was a guy, and I did really feel a connection, and he didn't respond. And then I'm not kidding. I remember this like yesterday. 3 weeks later,
3 weeks,
I get a text message from him, and he says, hey, Debbie, how was your weekend? And I responded, which weekend are you talking about?
3.
And he got the hint.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought that was really unimpressive.
You can even just add a reason why if you got caught up with things, and I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be present the last few weeks. It's still kind of an excuse, but I would respect that more.
He had lost 3 weeks of his life.
Right.
Like, I thought, well, maybe he's been lying in a coma for 3 weeks, and these 3 weeks went by and he didn't realize it. But I sent the message. Message was received, and I never heard back from him.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it was 3 days, there are some people that just aren't texters, and that's just something
I don't buy that, Caitlyn.
There's something you got to establish.
That.
But then that's why I'm I work in the business. You can send a quick response. It takes about 2 minutes.
2 minutes? I think it takes
30 seconds.
I think it takes 5
You're
seconds.
Correct, depending on the length of the message.
I think we tend to tell that to ourselves that it's hard to text back. I think it's never been easier to communicate with somebody over text, over a phone call, over a social media app. If your phone is broken, you can go to your computer and get on Facebook and send them a message. There are so many ways to do it these days that let's stop making excuses for people who are bad communicators, because there are tons of great and simple ways to communicate.
Yeah, and another one says a sign of immaturity if they can't communicate at the beginning of the relationship, I'm out. And that's a good point. It's honestly say thanks to them, because they just make the decision for you, and you'd have to be the one that's strong enough to not allow them to come back in when they let time pass. So maybe you forget about the fact that they ignored you and all that. This one is coming from one of my male friends, is that these men aren't men yet, and more often they haven't had any. Hold on.
It's like man up.
Yeah, more often than not, they haven't had to make any hard decisions in life and actually face them, so they don't know how to do it, which is just emotional maturity.
And that's a man saying that.
Yep.
Okay, about other men.
Yep.
Wow. So he's calling out other men for lacking emotional maturity to send a woman a quick message and instead ghosting her. I love it when men speak frankly about, because so often I feel it's the women calling out men, but when men do it, it just makes, I guess it feels validating that they recognize that's not respectful behavior at all. So I appreciate that comment.
And also, these are all kind of going on the same trend. It's because they're ignorant and lack intelligence, which this is just true. And if you say it, I want to bring up something. Girls do, some other guys on my post are saying girls do this too.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it should just be a focal point of gender, which is why I was like, I didn't necessarily mean that. It was just from my experience.
Well,
I can take accountability that I get overwhelmed sometimes and don't always respond, but I will eventually, because I don't like being ghosted.
So girls do it too. I did it.
Yeah.
I admit that I did it. I've talked about that, and I'm not pleased with myself that I did that. And there's no good excuse for doing it. You know, I mean, I am also on the flip side, like besides my personal life, I'm a professional, and I don't.
Yeah.
You know, at least not intentionally do I leave people hanging in the professional world. I would have never have made it as a journalist for 30 years. I would have never have made it in the FBI if I didn't respond as a spokesperson to numerous news organizations calling me day and night. So responding in our personal life, I think it's just is equally important.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where I gave myself that hall pass to ghost men. But I'm sorry I did that. I am genuinely sorry that I did that. And my goal going forward is to never do that again.
Yeah. And I think, just speaking out loud, I do think women mature quicker than men. I don't know why, but that's just my experience with the men. They seem to be slower to progress. And so they probably just don't have that emotional maturity quicker. And I think that we can realize that self-awareness of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And so all of this stuff.
So should we get a man's perspective on this?
I was just going to lead into that in case you had any extra thoughts. I was giving you space, but I just wanted to. Yeah. So
I want to hear a man's perspective on this.
One of my commenters, who is my friend that I know in the world, he brought up the point about girls ghosting and kind of how it's pushed him back from even wanting to date and stuff like that. So I want to learn more about the male perspective on when girls do that, because I think we can also take a look in the mirror of something that we may not know that we're always doing, and girls might even be able to get away with it more than guys.
Well, it makes me feel like we got to recognize that men are sensitive to this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking forward to dialing him up next.
All right, we are back, and we are joined by my friend Chris Erickson, and we know each other just because of mutual connections in the field of media. And so Debbie is meeting Chris for the first time over the phone.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Thanks so much for being with us. I'm excited to talk to you about being the ghosted.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. So I put out this question on social media of why do men ghost? And I had a lot of comments, and you were somebody who pointed it out to me, that women also can be the problem. And I am very aware of this, that I can also be a red flag. I get very busy. I get in my head. I may not be the most attentive person, but I try my best. And so I also I understand that. But I wanted to ask you just to come on and explain kind of any experiences that you've been ghosted and kind of what it's done to you and in your interest in dating overall.
Oh man, it's too many times to count. Sadly, I've been ghosted either through text or even in person, if that even makes sense. Meaning the whole classic, "Hey, I got to go to the restroom," and then just don't come back.
No,
I didn't think people actually did that,
Chris. Okay, walk us through all this, and we're going to have like a million questions about all of this, because it is interesting to hear it from the man's perspective. I think it's an important perspective.
Yeah, I think it gets overlooked a little bit in today's day and age, as far as like I'm all about like the movement that's going on right now with the women's movement. It's great. That's why I want Caitlyn on my podcast and all that stuff. Like get more representation, but a little bit some of it gets overlooked, as far, especially in the dating world. Because like I've just said, I've not only been the whole classic, got up to go to the restroom, not come back. That's not just happened once. That's happened twice. And then one time at a movie theater. So technically 3 times. And it's never fun, especially with the in texting. That's also the most common and really easily done, and it's really difficult to comprehend from any perspective, any side, male, female, doesn't matter. It just sucks all around, because I never know like like, oh, what did I do? So then a billion things start going through my head, like reanalyzing and overthinking every scenario. Should I have said this? Should I have done that? When ultimately it's just that person's whatever reason it was. It was never you or me, basically. It was always they had their reason for, like, I don't feel this vibe, I'm out. And instead of just saying that, I'm just left with my thoughts.
Right, and we just talked about that right before we got you on the line, about how it would just make life so much easier for just to say, hey, not feeling the vibe. And I'm just a follow-up question on when you've been ghosted, like in person. Did they literally just not talk to you at all again? Was there any explanation where you were just left alone, ghosted after a date?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was like, for instance, the dinners, I did that twice, and it's always afterwards, right? So it's like, hey, after we're done eating, they I just need to use the restroom before we leave, or well, actually no, let me back up. That was one instance. The other time was right in the middle. So then they would just block me, or if it was through a dating app, which I barely used those, I learned really quick that that's not the way to go. And so I would go look at the app to message them, and they're just unmatched me. Or if we got to the point where we're texting each other, that guy was just blocked. And just no communication. So I'm just left like, what's going on? and or waiting for them to come back. I've waited like an hour like for them to come back. And like wasn't happening. So I've kind of not been in the dating world for many, many years. I kind of stepped away. I mean, I entered the dating world technically for the very first time when I turned 27, because I got married pretty young and went through a divorce. And so I had to figure it all out right in the middle of, like, hey, you go on Tinder, you go on Bumble, this is what you're supposed to do. That was horrible. So I was a novice all around and learned the hard way about a lot of different things.
Well, Chris, I know you have your own podcast and you broadcast on YouTube?
Yes, YouTube as well as Spotify for that.
And it's, what is it, Just Another Chris?
So my YouTube channel is Just Another Chris, where I do instant photography, and then I have my podcast. But then my podcast name is Just Another Podcast. Kind of fits with the brand.
I love it. Well, it's so, Caitlyn's late 20s, I'm late 50s, and you're 34. So we've got almost all the ages. We probably need to get somebody in their 40s on here at some point. But I'm just going back to, I want to talk more about how, like, what kind of emotions were going on when you were at that restaurant or wherever it was, waiting for the woman to return, and there was no sign of her.
Yeah, it was definitely not good. Especially like, because it was like the early days of me like trying like get out there, put myself back out there after my divorce, and so I didn't know what I kind of thought that was normal almost, or if that was the first thought anyway, like this was, maybe this is just how it is. This sucks. My self-worth is just eliminated. Like, I shouldn't do this anymore. I should just be alone forever. All those classic thoughts. And then definitely after like the second and third time it happened, that's when it's really start looking within yourself. It's like, well, if it happens once, it's just a fluke. Twice, it's sort of a coincidence. Third time, there's something actually that needs to be looked at here. And so I kind of went on my own little journey of like self-improvement, focusing on myself for a while, and then just stopped kind of dating it all around.
Well, that's kind of terrible, because they did the act of they disrespected you, and then you got flipped like there's something wrong with me, which, I mean, we all have self-improvement to work on, obviously, and that's great, but I just think that I'm so stunned. I did not realize that happened to you in person so often.
Makes me feel horrible.
Yeah, like that's just so disrespectful to me. I can't even imagine doing that to someone. I could not live with myself. I feel bad if I don't respond to a text, and that's probably because I am a little traumatized. I have had a lot of loss in my life and just mental health concerns with a lot of my friends and stuff. Yeah. So I worry if I leave them, on red or don't respond to them, that, some self-destructive behavior could happen. I'm very traumatized by that. So I think that's why I'm always checking on people. But it is a real concern. That can be very, that can flip on you and have a big impact on your mental health.
What's your, coming from the male perspective on this, and somebody's been through obviously a lot, and we've all been ghosted, I think, in this crazy world of dating, Chris. First of all, like, I've been ghosted. I know Caitlyn's been ghosted. I've done the ghosting in the past, and just listening to you, and I've changed my ways since then. And I'm so glad I can come on this conversation with you and say I'm a different person than I was a few years ago when I got back into the dating game after my divorce. It makes me never want to ghost somebody again. I certainly would never do an Irish exit out the bathroom ceiling or something like that and shimmy through the parking lot. That's horrible. But what's your advice to women who are the ghosters?
Oh yeah. So the best advice I would give is it's like ripping a Band-Aid off. It's gonna suck, but just tell the truth. Just be like, hey, I think you're a cool person. I don't feel it. I'm out. And say, hey, best of luck to you. And then maybe block the person, but at least give them that closure, especially if it's if you've been talking, usually you've talked to this person for at least a few weeks, maybe before you've met them. That's kind of usually how the dating apps go. I would think, I don't know, who knows, maybe I'm wrong. I haven't done dating apps in years, but I would say you at least built some type of communication line, and one of the parties is interested enough to meet you. Just be like, hey, look, I'm not feeling it. I gotta go, bye. And then that's it. And it's gonna suck for the person, the other side of it, for sure. But the few people that have done that to me, I've always respected more, even though technically, in a way, it makes it harder because I'm like, dang, this actually was a good person. They actually told me hey, I think you're great. I'm out. I'm like, dang, I like them even more. So now it's going to be a little bit harder for me to move on. But I would rather have that than just be completely cut off with no explanation as to what happened. Did I do something wrong? Or you start getting in your head, and some people are a little that don't take rejection very well, and so it just causes more problem than good. So just be honest.
I feel like guys could do this too, but do you feel like they get away with ghosting men easier, or that they treat it more as a game? Because I can actually I feel like I've known people who do that, where they just, they start even talking to someone on a dating app, and then they just kind of decide they don't want to respond, but they don't want to be ghosted either. But how do you feel about that? As I feel like you're a good guy. I feel like good guys get the short end of the stick sometimes. Yeah.
Because I'm also what I learned really quick with dating apps. I'm not just with the apps in general, just in person. I'm a one person. If I'm talking to somebody, that's the only person I'm talking to. I'm giving them my undivided attention and working through it. In this world, that doesn't happen. In dating, or through apps and stuff, they're talking to 100 different people. And for a guy, we get maybe for every 100 girls we match with online, there's every of 100 people, we might match with one, out of 100, and versus a girl getting 80%, versus the male. They have more options, so I feel it's a lot easier for a girl to ghost than it is for a guy. And for someone like me, it's harder because I'm I put all this time and effort into one person. Maybe I should start talking to all these different people, but I can't do that. It's just my brain doesn't have that capacity to learn about a person's life and then learn about somebody else's. Because that's just how I did. Maybe that's an issue too. I try to learn about them, not just hey, what's your favorite color? Oh, cool. You went to this school. Oh, that's nice. What's your job? Basic surface level stuff. When I'm getting to know somebody, I want to know the deep stuff. I want to get to know them and the core values.
And that's what we want too. Well, at least, that's what I want. I shouldn't speak for everybody.
I think you need to this is my opinion, but I think you need to be true to who you really are, and not, if you don't play the field, or trying to talk to numerous women all at once, and that's not in your DNA, Chris, I would suggest you just be you and be true to you. I think it is, from a woman's perspective, it is, for me, difficult to talk to numerous men all at once. I'm on board with that same MO on a dating app. I prefer to connect with the guy, get to know him, and also get to know the good things and maybe the quirky things that might be of a concern or a red flag, and then go on a coffee date and get to know each other that way. which is totally one of my first date do's, is don't go to dinner or a movie. Just FYI, just go to a coffee date. Because I've been stood up, Chris, and I remember this time I was getting ready for dinner, and I get up. I work with Caitlyn here at KSL News Radio, and we got to be to work at, I don't know, 7 a.m. And it used to be we would come in at 5:30 or 6 a.m. So it's at least we're coming in at a reasonable hour. And a man asked me to go on a dinner date. And he's going to pick me up at about 7, which is pushing it for me because I have to get up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he never showed. And after that, I thought, I'm not doing any more dinner dates because I have to put so much effort into getting ready. And also my sleep schedule is totally off for the, that at least the next day. But at least a coffee date, it's 45 minutes to an hour. If they don't show, you grab your cup of coffee and you leave. And if they do exit out the coffee shack, you'll see them running through the parking lot. You know what I mean? It's just bonuses all the way around. So have you thought about that after you got ghosted I guess they made an exit at like the movie theater? Just don't go. Yeah. That's super nice that you would do that, though. Like take somebody out to dinner and take a woman to a movie. But I think, oh man, once burned, twice shy. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I can't agree more with if it's a first date type of thing, just coffee date or I know not everyone drinks, but like grab a drink or something, more casual environment, something that's not so one with a lot of pressure or we feel trapped because maybe that's something that this person was like, oh no, I'm stuck with this person at a dinner. I have to wait through the meal or whatever. But yeah, like coffee is perfect. I think that's great. And I definitely have stopped doing dinner dates after all that.
I think that this is a really good look in the mirror. Like, I mean, I could never do that. Leave somebody alone at in a public place. I could never do that. But I don't know, look in a mirror of like, are you brushing people off that are actually giving you an attention and stuff like that? But I think it comes down to being a good human.
Chris, I also feel as though men's emotions and feelings get dismissed by women. Like you're just supposed to tough it up and you're just supposed to take it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in reverse, but I'm so grateful that you've been willing to share your experience because it reminds me that men have feelings too, and
they just don't show it.
Who wants? I would never want a guy that I went out on a date with to be thinking about this for weeks or months on end as to why I just vanished in thin air. So I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, at first it took a little bit to really process. It sucked at the time. I was just more hating on myself. But as time has gone on, I've learned a lot more about the dating world and how it all works. I mean, obviously we'll never figure it out. It's just an enigma that no one will ever pinpoint. But it's definitely like I'm like, oh, well, that person, I'm glad they ghosted me, or I'm glad they did that because it saved me months or weeks or who knows, maybe years of pain and suffering in different ways of like with them to find out who they really are. Like they showed me their true colors right there.
Yeah. No responses or response is the message there. I have to remind myself of that sometimes. You just have to be like, okay, well, that was the response. So, but I mean, Chris, I think I really appreciate you calling and sharing that because I think it's really important to bring up.
The dating world's scary. It's putting yourself out there can be a marathon. And I know I should probably just saddle back up and just move on and go forth. Go hence into battle or whatever they sometimes say. But man, it can be tough. And next time you're on a date with somebody, consider their feelings. If you don't feel it or feel it with them, just let them know. Let them up front. Don't take the easy way out for yourself. Because you never know on the other end how they're going to take it. Chris
Erickson, just another Chris on YouTube and all the socials. Go give him a follow and a subscribe, all the things. But thank you so much
Chris,
for talking to us about this.
Yeah, just thank you so much for having me. It was great to share. I don't get to do that often, so appreciate you for having me on.
Don't be a stranger. Love to have you back.
Yeah, just give me a call. Sounds good.
And don't forget, you can always share your dater hater moments with us. If you've got a crazy dating story, give us a call at 801-575-5599.
Yeah, we need phone calls from y'all. 801-575-5599. Leave us a voicemail and we might just play it back on Dating at Her Age.
And make sure to follow us on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Dating at Her Age, and we'll meet you back here next week.